This video is sponsored by Spades Royale.
Searches on for the person who shot 3 people, including a 14-year-old. 1 man died.
Robbed, killed, got shot, stole, everything. I don't got shot, it will.
My baby mama, and my little girl, and my mama, and her friend. Both of them got shot. One bad move can jeopardize, my whole life.
Atlanta is arguably hip-hop's modern-day capital city. There's countless rappers to come out of the A, achieving legend status era after era. Back in the day, we had the likes of Ludacris and Lil Jon turning up the city with their shout and crunk-based rap bangers. As the game developed, we saw the likes of newer school trap rappers like Gucci Mane, OJ the Juke Man, and Waka Flocka, who went from trapping on Atlanta corners to their trap music booming out of the trunk of every passing car in Atlanta. T.I., Young Jeezy, Shorty Low, The Migos, Outkast, 2 Chainz, 21 Savage. There's so many Atlanta rap legends that the city might as well be a goat farm. But it's not just in the vocal booth where the legends of Atlanta emerged, because if you know rap or drill music very well, then you'll know that often behind the rap hits are gangs and hitters. And Atlanta itself has had one of the most illustrious histories when it comes to gangs running the city. BMF, or the Black Mafia family, were a notorious ring of drug traffickers who were running the city back in the noughties, taking their dope operation to heights never believed possible in the city, to the point where they were even getting billboards to advertise their criminal enterprise / record label. Now, today's Atlanta story isn't about BMF or the big-time dope operations that have come through Atlanta, but that does provide the backdrop to a number of smaller outfits that would spawn some of the biggest names in Atlanta rap today. Because on the opposite end of the spectrum to the flashy, big money throwing lifestyle of the BMF, were the young G's coming up in the most difficult streets of Atlanta, fighting for survival and simply trying to make it out alive. And a lot of young men have come up through the trenches of Atlanta, eventually managing to make something of themselves, escaping the streets through a legitimate career in the music industry, with some even being lucky enough to become chart-topping megastars and getting far away from the dangerous streets they came from. But the problem is, when you make it out of the streets and onto the Billboard charts, you gotta try and stay there. Today, we're gonna be telling the story of 2 rappers, both coming out of the slums of 2 different parts of Atlanta's Zone 3, with both rappers getting an opportunity to get out of the streets, going clear and making millions of dollars legitimately through the music industry. But unfortunately, by the end of this story, you'll see that one side would remain a little too close to the streets, and sadly getting caught up in a jam at the very height of his career. This is truly a story of struggle, potential, and opportunity, and the sad truth that sometimes you can work your entire life for an opportunity that can be lost in a second when your past life comes back to haunt you. This is the story of the long and bloody feud between Young Thug's YSL crew and YFN Lucci's YFN crew. A story which has been kept pretty secret for a number of years, but through weeks of meticulous research, pouring through lyrics, internet forums, and news reports, so today I'm going to unpack and unravel one of Atlanta's most iconic and complicated beefs once and for all. But before we get to that, a quick word from our sponsor.
Let me tell you about Spades Royale. It's the free-to-play, friendly spades game. It's out on iOS and Android now. You can play anytime or place, and with live video, you can see your opponent's face and reactions as you play. Their video tables will leave you amazed. So don't wait, just scroll down on this page. Click that link in description and go download the game. It's completely free, and you get 1,000 coins, and you'll be supporting me. So go help out your boy. If you don't know Spades is a cool card game you can play. There's 2 on 2, so you need to be synced with a mate, but there's always one online to game. The basic rules are you get 13 cards and it's time to think. Based on those cards, you need to guess how many rounds you're gonna win. And together, you and your partner need to hit the number of hands that you thought you would hit to win. It's totally fun and challenging. So much to see and find. Tournaments, unique table designs, special card decks, and different game modes to try. Jokers, Royal Spades, Turbo Arena, and more, they're all sublime. I just hit level 5, up those rankings you're gonna climb. You can win more coins collecting different cards from different collections, and you can customize your avatar for the perfect form of expression. Guys, what are you waiting for? Okay, go to that link in the video description, support my channel, and download Spades Royale for free, and you're gonna get 1,000 coins. It's lit. Good luck, and I will see you there, gang. Peace. Peace out, gang.
Young Thug is truly one of the most unique and talented rappers of the last 10 years. Endlessly creative, his enormous catalogue is packed wall to wall with bangers. Coming from the slums of Atlanta, making some of the greasiest trap music imaginable, over the course of a decade-long career, Young Thug ascended from the gutter, going clear and becoming a full-blown pop star. #1 hits with Camila Cabello, Travis Scott and Drake have all cemented him as one of the most reliable hit-making guest features over the past few years, putting him well on his way to his personal goal of having 10 #1s.
This year I want 10 #1 singles. If you don't freestyle and you actually work on the singles and record great choruses and develop your songs, yes.
However, behind the iconic hitmaker is a harsh upbringing in some of the meanest streets of Atlanta. In fact, when Sway asked Young Thug where he was from, he had an interesting answer.
Where did you come from? Like, what is your background? Like,
Man.
Okay, what's the
Man,
you got
streets.
Hey Thug, you gotta, you know, you
Man,
do
we
that.
came from the streets.
Okay.
I'm talking about like goddamn.
Yes, Thug says that he is truly from the streets, having been shot at and being the shooter.
I don't got shot, you know, everything that happened, it don't been both ways. Robbed, killed, got shot, stole, you know, everything, all those people.
And sure enough, here Thug is, in the trenches before the fame, toting straps, wiping his nose, and teaching infants how to throw up the blood sign.
Right now in the trenches, keep pistols. Oh, like you bitches up. You know all day, nigga. Wipe your nose, nigga. Nose. Wipe it. Yeah. Fine, nigga. Big B. Big B. I know this shit. Little baby rolling B.
So, Thug really did come up in these streets. But what streets specifically? Well, Thug himself originally hails from the Jonesboro South projects, which were actually demolished in 2008. Young Thug described the slum-like project where he comes from in a Fader interview as nothing but roaches and rats. In fact, Thug has even referred to the area where he grew up as Little Haiti or just Haiti due to its crumbling resemblance to the developing nation of Haiti, with Thug even making a track called Haiti Slang and actually naming one of his own daughters Haiti. But even more significant in his music is nearby Cleveland Avenue, which intersects with Jonesboro Road, and thanks to Thug, over the years has become one of the most famous streets in Atlanta trap music. So according to Thug, Jonesboro Road and the surrounding areas are so rough they resemble an undeveloped economy. And with all that in mind, it's no surprise that Cleveland Avenue has been a gang stronghold for several decades. Sometimes referred to as Bleveland Avenue due to its long-running association with the Blood Gang, who famously replaced the letter C with B, you know, because they hate Crips so much. And Young Thug has apparently been associated with the Bleveland Avenue Bloods from way back. Hell, if anything, it looks like Young Thug really boned up on his blood homework, because he's known to throw up so many blood hand signs in quick succession that it might as well be sign language.
Now they would have to chit chat. She got rabies.
Now, the specific crew of Bleveland Avenue Bloods, who run the block that Thug comes from, is a crew by the name of Raised on Cleveland, abbreviated to ROC, or the Rock Crew. Sometimes it's restylized as RO5, once again replacing the C because they're Bloods, with other alternative acronyms for ROC being offered by Thug in an early Fader interview, including Rich Off Crime or Ready on Command. Basically, these are some serious Atlanta goons who are not to be played with. In fact, a 2011 bust on the Raised on Cleveland gang saw for the first time part of their operation exposed for the whole world to see, with US Marshals and an Atlanta police gang unit conducting a major sting operation on the gangbangers in Cleveland Avenue and the surrounding areas. This operation took 8 alleged members off of the streets, along with the seizure of 2 cars, $10,000 in cash, 4 guns, and drugs apparently worth 50 racks. Now, it's not quite a BMF level operation, but it's certainly proof that the criminal underworld of Cleveland Avenue is definitely active when it comes to trapping. And this is the environment that Young Thug and his team came up around. In fact, old videos of the Rock Crew chilling on their block around 2009 still circulate on YouTube today, showing Young Thug running through the streets of Atlanta, surrounded by his homies back when he used to go by the name Lil Jeff, showing off his unusually fashionable hood drip and clowning his homeboys for secretly photographing his unusual white boy swag fits.
King of white boy swagging, right? Stand on one time, let just let lady folks see what you're doing now. Straight out the goddamn. Rocked out right here, man, you know what I'm saying? Alright, you check him out now. This is what he doing. He's on his phone, but he's taking pictures of me at the same time, you know what I'm saying?
In fact, in a kind of unusual uniting feature, it would appear that the Rock Crew would all identify themselves by wearing matching Rockefeller jeans.
Playing shit with the Rock Republic motherfuckers, you hear me, man? Let my boy Lil D get on there. What you call the wheel chain with the dish? motherfucker, he scored 100 points.
Anyway, Young Thug and his affiliates have gone on to pay homage to the Raised on Cleveland crews in music. YL Stunner had a project called Raised on Cleveland. Lil Keed had a whole mixtape series titled Trapped on Cleveland. And there's a number of interviews with Young Thug early in his career where he discusses being part of the rock crew, describing it as more like a family or even a religion. Now, at a certain point, the rapping guys from Cleveland Ave started referring to themselves as YSL rather than the rock crew. Now, if you ask the Atlanta police what YSL stands for, they would say Young Slime Life, an official set of the Bloods in Atlanta. But if you ask Young Thug, especially on camera, he'll tell you that YSL is his record label, Young Stoner Life. A totally legal enterprise that he uses to legitimately, as he says, hire hundreds of members of his own family. In fact, in a since-deleted Complex article titled Inside the Snake Pit, The Rise of Young Thug's YSL Label, Young Thug explains how YSL operates unlike any other label in the music industry and is in fact a genuine family. Now, in this long, rambling and kind of strange article, we don't get that much of a substantial explanation as to how YSL conducts their operations very differently to any other record label, other than the fact that Young Thug seems hell-bent on giving legitimate jobs to his friends and members of his immediate family by the dozens. The article did go on to explain that after his 2014 single Stoner picked up steam in the industry, Young Thug got on the radar of big-time rap label 300. Now, at a certain point, talk of Thug getting his own record label came about, and weirdly, when it came to setting up his label, one of the only questions Thug really had for senior decision makers was, how many people have you made a millionaire? Thug would actually go on to say that he wanted to use his YSL label as a vehicle to make all of his friends and family millionaires. So he went on to sign his day one friends Gunna and Lil Duke, later on with the likes of Lil Keed, Lil Gotit, and Yak Gotti joining the label, along with a number of other signees who aren't really that relevant yet. Now, that article goes on to repeatedly describe YSL as a family, and most importantly going on to suggest that at this point, they don't engage in any extracurricular activities. Now, to me, this would suggest that the YSL movement represented Young Thug's genuine efforts to create a legitimate business, putting on all of the people he grew up with, taking them away from the risks of the streets or crime for good, with Thug using the enterprise to provide as many opportunities for those under his wing as he possibly could. Apparently, YSL has a massive compound in LA called the Snake Pit, with multiple studios where YSL artists can pull up and record at any time. So, YSL is a family, not dissimilar to how Thug kind of described the rock crew as a family or religion back in 2013. It's a really good thing that Thug's doing for his people, but again, the question still remains. What makes YSL so special? Why does YSL stand out? Well, actually, the thing that seemed to have made YSL such a standout act in hip-hop over the past few years is really how they pioneered the use of certain gang lingo in their music. Because if you know Young Thug and his songs, you probably know his lingo. One of the most popular catchphrases that Young Thug and his YSL movement are known for saying is slime. This is the word that Young Thug popularized in a lot of his songs, which can mean your friend, for example, you know, that's my friend, that's my slime, but the word slime can also mean a member of the Bloods. It can also mean to be slimy and untrustworthy, like a snake, and while you're there, slime can also be used interchangeably to mean kill or hurt. For example, we have to slime the ops down. Now, the use of the phrase slime is traditional blood gang lingo, originally associated with Vado and the New York Bloods, but Vado wasn't the first to use it. In fact, the likes of Noriega had been using it on tracks since 2002, including the intro track Hit Me Slime from his God's Favorite album, where we even hear Queensbridge legend Nas calling Nori slime too. So, being a Blood straight out of Cleveland Avenue, the word slime was apparently part of Young Thug's lexicon from an early age. But Young Thug seemed to be the first person, at least in the modern music industry, to make this slime blood lingo a big part of his persona. In fact, if you know Young Thug's catalogue well, you'll know that the majority of the imagery and artwork that surrounds his music is all slime and snake themed. Thug would actually later go on to tell Sway in an interview that he felt he found the secret formula when he realized that he was the first rapper to popularize the use of the phrase slime.
No, slime is like, it's like, I never seen no one in the rap game that really named themselves or been so-called slime.
Now, Thug explained to Sway that the meaning of the phrase slime was to mean untrustworthy.
Xing out. It's like, okay, you and me best friends, me and you hit a lick, we get 20,000, I cuff 10,000 and be like, it's only 10, you know, just like slimy.
Oh, slimy,
like, slimy.
But he also enthusiastically denied it being a gang term.
So that's not a gang term or nothing?
Nah.
No?
A gang?
Gang, G-A-N-G, yeah, gang.
No.
Okay,
The thing is, there's not actually that much consensus on the exact meaning of slime amongst the YSL crew. Lil Gotit defined slime as another name for the YSL crew themselves.
Slime, YSL. You know, slime, you know, stone like, you know, successful like, you know what I'm saying? Folks be saying, folks on me, big YSL, like, they slime like.
But Gotit also denied slime was a gang, once again echoing Thug's earlier comments that the YSL team are a family.
We slime, I don't know about the other niggas, but we slime. This YSL shit is a family. Not no gang, none of it. It's family.
But anyway, the phrase slime found its way into numerous early big songs of Thug's, and in some cases entire songs being based around the phrase, like the track Slime Shit, featuring YSL affiliates Pee Wee Roscoe, Lil Duke, and Yak Gotti. But as well as slime, there's another catchphrase that the YSL crew made popular and has since made its way all the way around the world. And that one is SLAT, which has apparently been explained as an acronym for Slime Love All the Time, a catchphrase that has been used regularly as an ad-lib amongst Young Thug, YSL rappers, and even beyond. At a certain point, the SLAT ad-lib became so popular, you can catch any number of famous rappers from Roddy Ricch, Lil Uzi Vert to YNW Melly using the song, which to me is just more proof of how powerful Young Thug and the YSL slime SLAT movement has become in modern rap culture. But what does SLAT even mean? Well, Lil Gotit explained that SLAT was actually a slime greeting and farewell, like hello and goodbye.
Slat, that's a greetings or, you know what I'm saying, a farewell, like leaving, you know what I'm saying, slat.
And I tell you what, at a certain point, Thug's comments about YSL being a religion really start to ring true, because in one of the most cult-like practices of the YSL crew, apparently upon joining the label, all signees are required to receive a slat tattoo on their nose-wiping finger. Because we can't forget that other catchphrase popularized by Young Thug and his YSL goons, wipe his nose, a slime-affiliated term associated with killing. E.g., we had to wipe that op's nose, a phrase which can be heard as early as 2014 on the Metro Thuggin' track, The Blangwich. So anyway, that's the YSL crew, their complex background, history, and language. So I hope you can fully understand and appreciate where Young Thug and his YSL crew are coming from. As Thug said, YSL is more like a family than a record label. Problem is, as members of the family grow up and make that transition from the streets into the legitimate music industry, unfortunately, those street beefs can still come back to haunt you. And in this case, the young men coming out of Cleveland Avenue have apparently had a long-running and bitter feud with another group of young guys from a nearby area that goes by the name of Summerhill. Now I know that Young Thug might not be the first artist that you think of when it comes to drill rappers spinning up the op block, but actually Young Thug can be heard dissing the opposing area of Summerhill in one of his earliest songs, Haiti Slang, where he says, "Everybody can't get it, I ain't from Summerhill but I'm visiting." Now, Summerhill spawned a little-known crew in Atlanta called YFN, fronted up by their head honcho YFN Lucci. Lucci hails from Summerhill in Atlanta.
You know, I'm from Summerhill, so I walk over here with my boy, man. We just be kicking it, thinking about ways, you know, to get out. Like, how we gonna do it?
Now, that clip was actually from a Karen Civil interview with YFN Lucci called Welcome to My Neighborhood. And in that piece, he also took her to the Trestle Tree Village Apartments, a nearby project where his homie YFN Trey Pound is from.
Now we in Trestle Tree, this area right here, my boy Pound, Trey Pound, you know, he in YFN. I met Pound when I was like 8 years old. We went to DA Stanton. And that's where he stayed at.
YFN Lucci broke down the realities of where he's from in a Vibe interview where he said not many make it out. And I'm sure you won't be surprised to find out that Summerhill is yet another ATL area associated with extensive gang activity. Numerous blood sets have apparently operated around these areas for a number of years, but according to Atlanta police, one of the most significant crews to click up and emerge out of Summerhill and nearby Peoplestown in Atlanta is the ABG, or Atlanta Blood Gang, with ABG sometimes also standing for Anybody Get It. Apparently coming from their members' willingness to act out violence on literally anyone. So yeah, I wouldn't want to mess with these guys. According to the Atlanta police, the ABG are also clicked up with other Atlanta blood sets like the Bird Gang, apparently formed in the early 2000s in Atlanta's 4th Ward. And according to local police, Atlanta's many blood sets allegedly have ties to the original Inglewood family Bloods from Los Angeles. And as we're going to find out later on in this story, the Atlanta Bloods have other interstate connections that stretch as far as Miami too. So with all of these blood gang alliances, it's no surprise then that YFN Lucci was apparently also close to fellow Atlanta blood Bloody J, a red rag rocking Atlanta rapper who was apparently getting it in blood way before Durk and Pooh Shiesty was, with his 2013 track Get It in Blood showing a lot of people for the first time that Atlanta had a big blood gang movement too. So you've got the Atlanta blood gang running in the streets with the red rags, and much like YSL, if you ask the Atlanta police, they would tell you that YFN is another violent blood set that's committing crimes in the streets, as well as having ties in the music industry. But if you ask YFN Lucci, he would say YFN is not a gang, it's his rap collective and record label. YFN, of course, standing for Young Fly. Yeah.
And the YFN means what?
Young Fly Nigga.
In fact, the full name is YFN BC.
Young Fly Nigga
about cash because it got a BC at the end. So it's young fly nigga about cash.
And it's not just Lucci repping YFN either. He's joined by the likes of YFN his big brother who got him into rap, YFN Fat, who apparently became a blood at the ripe young age of 15, Ferrari Fred or Fred Rari, a rapper signed to YFN hailing from Miami. Now look, we're gonna get well into the music from artists on both sides of this beef, but for now, let's go back to the very beginning, because the beef between these two crews have a lot to do with their careers. Ultimately, both sides had the right idea. Lucci and Thug are both young guys from tough, gang-infested areas, trying to get out and make a better life for themselves and their families. And at a certain point, both of them realized that they would be better off doing this in the music industry rather than in the streets. But unfortunately, after a long and difficult come up, just as both artists were getting to their peak in the rap game, their unfortunate and violent past just kept on dragging them down. Now, Young Thug began to dabble in rap publicly all the way back in 2010. One of his earliest appearances, featuring on True Royale's She Can Go, saw a young Thug showcasing an early style heavily influenced by Lil Wayne. And to begin with, music wasn't really a serious prospect for Young Thug. But in 2011, that perspective might have begun to change for Thug. This being the year of that big bust on the Raised on Cleveland crew. With the block hot and a number of young people from the area getting locked up, thankfully Thug was able to find a new route to success as he would begin to pick up steam musically. Over the course of 2011 and 2012, Thug would drop 3 installments of a mixtape series, I Came From Nothing 1, 2 and 3. Projects which featured extensive lyrics about Thug's tough come up around the rock crew on Cleveland Avenue. So Thug was beginning to make some waves in music, though in the early days he would struggle to distance himself from those many Lil Wayne comparisons. But eventually, Young Thug's hard work would pay off and he would pick up the attention of Atlanta trap legend Gucci Mane, who would sign Thug to his 1017 Brick Squad record label, with Gucci apparently signing Thug for 25 bands in cash without even hearing his music. But this gamble would pay off as Thug's profile would continue to rise, and Gucci would even collaborate with him numerous times on the 1017 Thug joint mixtape, as well as Gucci putting Thug on his 2013 single Breakdance. These moves would have Thug capturing the attention of the hip-hoposphere in a big way. He landed himself a 2013 Complex article which unfortunately opened with a massive paragraph comparing him to Lil Wayne, but in my opinion, it was around this time that Young Thug actually begun to find his own original style, moving away from the derivative flows that he had borrowed from Lil Wayne before. Also in that Complex article, we got an update on where Young Thug was as far as his connections to the streets, saying that since signing with 1017, he's spending less time with his original rock crew. And by 2017, we would stop hearing Young Thug referring to his old team, the rock crew, and beginning to refer to the people around him as a group by the name of YSL. But far from a label, Young Thug was still describing his YSL goons as the guys that will come and wipe your nose. From here, Young Thug would begin to shout out his YSL family on as many songs as he possibly could, even giving them a big shout out on his breakthrough single, Stoner. In fact, on that very song, there are lyrics that may have gone over a lot of people's heads, where Young Thug seems to basically explain the evolution of the rock crew to YSL, rapping "Hear My Song Way from YTC," which is apparently Young Thug's in charge, ROB, which stands for Raised on Bleveland or Cleveland, SMM, Sex Money Murder, another blood set out of Atlanta, now we YSL Venom, which seems to suggest that Thug kind of came up through all these gang blood sort of sets. But that's in the past, and now he's YSL, baby. He goes on to shout out a number of people, referring to them as his slimes, followed by the slat ad-lib. And really, if you ask me, the track Stoner is basically the point where Young Thug began to heavily rep YSL in his music and just in general. This is where the movement began. And it also just so happens that this is the point where Young Thug's career began to take off massively. Along with Stoner, he dropped his other breakout single, Danny Glover. Stoner actually ended up going number 47 on the Billboard charts. So Thug was finally getting a shot at the legitimate music industry. But that doesn't mean that away from the charts, Thug wasn't still rapping on some blood shit. He actually collaborated with that well-known Atlanta blood who we mentioned earlier on in this story, Bloody J, on a collaborative mixtape called Black Portland. Now, this was unfortunately taken off of streaming services in 2019, but the mere fact that this project exists just goes to show you how interconnected and clicked up the various blood rappers in Atlanta were at this point in time. But at a certain point, the blood ties in the music industry would go far beyond Atlanta. At a certain point, Young Thug ended up linking with famous industry blood, big-time music mogul Birdman of Cash Money Records, with Young Thug finding himself featuring prominently on Birdman's Rich Gang collaboration project, including the lead hit single Lifestyle alongside Rich Homie Quan, a track that in my opinion goes down to this very day as probably one of the best party songs that the rap game has ever spawned. So not only does Young Thug land a spot on one of the best party records of the entire era, but he also earns numerous placements on Birdman's Rich Gang The Tour compilation album. This project also featured the bonus track Throw Your Hood Up, where Young Thug, Bloody J, and and Nipsey Hussle all rep their gang affiliations heavily, with Thug and Bloody J basically writing a love letter to being a Blood. Birdman's all over the track throwing up his set and replacing C's with B's. But Birdman also says in the intro of the song that they're big Bloods but they hang out with a few Crips. Hence why Nipsey Hussle is also on the song, dropping lyrics that would only become relevant in court documents years later. So you've got Birdman, Young Thug and Bloody J and a whole bunch of other Blood affiliated rappers running around on tour, living the luxury lifestyle and finally making money off of music. Problem is, along with the Blood affiliated musicians are a bunch of Blood gang members who are better known in the streets than in the music. In fact, in a Rich Gang behind the scenes vlog, we actually see Young Thug introduce a man to the camera, describing him as one of the biggest Bloods in America.
I got one of the biggest Bloods in America with me, my nigga. You did. Atlanta, Georgia, nigga.
This man's name is Donovan Thomas, aka Big Nut, and he's a man who would play a major role in the come-up story of YFN Lucci. But unfortunately, his life would be suddenly cut short, sparking a bloody war in the streets that would go on for years to come. So, YFN Lucci's big brother YFN encouraged him to get into rap when he was a teenager.
My big brother, his name YFN, he been rapping since I was like 13. Inspired me, made me want to make music. I started rapping, I freestyle for my big brother.
But obviously his big brother, who was an aspiring rapper himself, wouldn't really be able to get him into the industry. But fortunately for Lucci, having ties in the streets meant he had a network of people to draw upon who might just be able to give him a head start in the rap game. In fact, one of his closest friend's older brothers was Big Nut, that same man that Young Thug had described on Birdman's yacht as one of the biggest Bloods in America. And Lucci would go on to say that Big Nut heard his music and truly believed in him.
Now, you had a close friend named Nut.
Yeah, that was one of my best friend, big brothers. And he would just believe in me, like when he used to hear my music and shit.
In fact, it was actually Big Nut himself who had introduced YFN Lucci to Fly, who had managed Rich Homie Quan and Trinidad James as part of his record label, Think It's a Game.
Yeah, he introduced me to Fly. Well, I know this person, we're gonna try to fuck with this person. But then we were fucking with somebody like, man, I don't think he know too much. I'm gonna introduce you to Fly.
Yeah, Fly had Rich Homie Quan, he also had Trinidad James.
Yeah, so Nut introduced me to them. When he introduced me to them, now they were fucking with the music.
In fact, YFN Lucci would later reveal in a DJ Smalls Eyes interview that it was Nut who introduced Lucci to Fly, saying that Lucci was the hardest rapper out and that he would listen to a strategy if Fly put one together for him.
He introduced me to Fly. He was like, man, Fly know, like, man, shout it. Hard, like ain't nobody harder than him, man. He want to do it, he love doing it, so he gonna do it and he gonna listen. And Fly, Fly, but that was his man, and he believed in him.
Clearly Nut's word held weight in the streets and in the rap game, and purely off the strength of Nut's recommendation and his first mixtape that was completed but unreleased at this point, Fly decided to give Lucci a chance, releasing his tape Wish Me Well under Think It's a Game Records. With Lucci also getting a care pack courtesy of Fly, a feature from his label mate Rich Homie Quan, for Lucci's first single, Exactly How It Was. And so, all thanks to Big Nut, Lucci finally had an opportunity to break into the rap game fully legit. And from here, Lucci would go on to have big career W's working with Think It's a Game Entertainment. But the saddest fact of all would be that Big Nut, the man that made it all possible for him, wouldn't be around to see it. On January the 11th, 2015, YFN Lucci's close friend and mentor, Big Nut, real name Donovan Thomas, is shot dead at an Atlanta barbershop.
And now to a developing story this morning. The search is on for the person who shot 3 people, including a 14-year-old. 1 man died.
Neighbors in Atlanta's Castleberry Hill neighborhood heard the gunfire around 7:30 Saturday night. She saw 3 young men on the ground. Atlanta police say a teenager and a man in his 20s were both shot in the leg. The third, 26-year-old Donovan Thomas, was critical.
Had a significant injury. We had at least multiple gunshots in the upper torso area. He was rushed to surgery.
Thomas died at the hospital. Homicide detectives looked for bullet holes and brought in a police canine to search for more shell casings. They believe it was a drive-by shooting.
Police believe the 3 2-adult men and a 14-year-old were targeted. Triple shooting outside this barbershop ended the life of 26-year-old Donovan Thomas.
Big Nut was loved and respected by the YFN crew and in the streets of Atlanta at large. And following his death, clips of him with the likes of YFN Lucci circulated on social media, showing just how close these two really were.
Cut, man, straight up, man. Salute to you, big boy. We fucking with you, man. Lucci.
Following Nut's death, it's said that there was a massive fallout in the Atlanta music scene. YFN Trey Pound told DJ Smalls Eyes just how shocked he was to hear about Nut's passing, with Lucci also speaking on the loss of Nut in his Karen Civil interview, remembering how Nut had been the first person who put him on in the rap game.
I lost one of my homies who really got me on. You know, long live Nut forever.
Now, as far as I could tell, the police never announced any arrests or suspects in the killing of Nut. And while there's no concrete evidence to suggest that anyone associated with YSL had anything to do with Big Nut's murder, a lot of YouTube videos already exist explaining that theory. Countless comments have popped up on Reddit threads relating to this incident, suggesting YSL had something to do with what happened to Nut. But perhaps most significantly, the Atlanta police would later say, in an indictment targeting YFN members, that local police intelligence suggested that it was widely believed that YSL was somehow responsible for Big Nut's death, going on to state that it was this belief that directly caused the hostility between these two groups. Now, whether or not this is actually true, we'll probably never definitively know. But it is clear that following the death of Nut, a big rift emerged between Atlanta rappers. Rich Homie Quan, who at this point shared management with YFN Lucci, but was also closely involved in Young Thug and Birdman's Rich Gang project, would take a step back from things, with Rich Homie Quan's relationship with Thug famously declining, and Quan just generally taking a step out of the limelight. It would also appear that the former collaborative relationship between Bloody J and Young Thug would never be the same again too, as Bloody J would continue to collaborate with YFN Lucci, but not Thug. At a certain point, the city of Atlanta basically split into two halves, and according to the police, this is when the beef truly heated up, with the cops reporting that as many as 37 incidents and 4 subsequent murders that they believe were linked to this original inciting incident. But as both YFN Lucci and Young Thug would continue to have success in the music industry, picking up thousands of fans and making millions of dollars from their songs, eventually their beef would also make its way into the music industry for the entire world to see, because no matter how much they wanted to keep their street politics secret, eventually this beef would play out very publicly and very bitterly. In the midst of the death of Big Nut, the war between YFN and YSL was heating up in the streets. During this time, a lot of the beef in the area was kept offline, especially considering the fact that in 2015, when Nut's life was taken, both Thug and Lucci were still relatively early on in their careers. So at this point, the kind of gang-related activity going on around these two artists was subject to far less scrutiny. However, in 2016, as YFN Lucci's career begins to pick up steam and he appears in a number of on-camera interviews, he reveals just how real his life in the streets of Atlanta has truly gotten, telling Karen Civil that his family home had been the target of numerous shootings.
When my house got shot up, I was out of town though, man. I get a call, my mom don't say the house got shot. They ain't even pull up in front of the house. They pull up like right here, and they was just shooting it like, you know, sideways behind the car in the street. They was in the street though shooting because that's where all the shell was.
Yes, apparently the ops were pulling up at YFN Lucci's house and straight spraying it up. But that wasn't the only time. Apparently they came back, and this time Lucci's own mother was left injured.
He ain't even really want to say it. He like the house there, he said it happened again. We hop out, we come over here. Jew was in here, my big brother Juju was in here, my baby mama, and my little girl and my mama and her friend. Both of them got shot though, my mama and her friend.
Whilst he was forthcoming to Karen Civil about the details of the shooting, when asked about who did it in a Vlad TV interview, Lucci was much less forthcoming.
You don't know who did it. Street code, right?
So at this point, the stakes in the streets of Atlanta are getting very high. And when mothers are getting hit, you know that the beef is serious. But even worse than involving mothers is involving children. And as the beef goes on, you will see that rappers on both sides of this feud aren't afraid to take it there, bringing their own ops' kids into the beef just to goad their rivals. In February 2016, YFN Lucci took to Instagram to wish Young Thug's daughter a happy birthday, posting a video of her face, which I'm definitely not going to put in this video. An incredibly ominous and serious message from YFN Lucci to Young Thug. But in spite of this kind of bold message sent on social media for the whole world to see, Lucci wasn't done prodding Thug. That same month, he also took to Twitter, saying that Young Thug's fiancée Jerica misses being on the couch with Lucci. He went on to infer that Young Thug would cry if he saw the DMs between Lucci and Jerica. Lucci would go on to post the unverified but supposed messages between him and Jerica, which weren't really damning or necessarily verifiable, but at the very least, if true, they would infer that Jerica had been to visit Lucci. Anyway, Lucci attempted to back up that unverifiable screen grab with a tweet saying true story, and another saying that he's got someone's hoe on a leash, going on to infer that he stole a rich person's girl, and atting Jerica directly saying that he misses her, shooting out another tweet to suggest that her denying this is a lie. And finally, ending his tirade by tweeting out 3 L's, which I assume were aimed at Young Thug. Now, Thug eventually replied in a tweet suggesting that Lucci was just looking for clout, and another saying that if a rapper wants to come up, they should collab rather than trying to start beef. A month after this, in March 2016, Lucci does an interview with DJ Small's Eyes where he suggests that he doesn't even know who Young Thug is.
You and Thug?
I don't know him. Never heard of him.
Now at a certain point it would make sense for Lucci to set his pride and this beef to one side and focus on his buzzing music career. By this point Lucci was just about getting to that next level. Since joining up with CEO Fly of Think It's a Game Entertainment, he'd gone on to drop his follow-up mixtape Wish Me Well 2, just about landing in on the Billboard charts at position 183. This would be Lucci's first real chart hit, with Lucci and Fly both pulling up for a celebratory interview on The Breakfast Club. And in this interview, Lucci had some choice words, not just for Young Thug, but also his fiancée Jerica. Doubling down on his earlier tweet shooting his shot at her, with Lucci saying he'll holler at whoever he wants.
Now I saw you also was tweeting at Young Thug's fiance.
If that was his girl, that was his girl. You smell me?
Okay, so you didn't know, maybe.
Hey man, we in the street, man. I met everybody.
Not long after brushing off the Young Thug drama, Lucci would go on in this interview to boldly proclaim that he is still tied in with the streets and that everybody he keeps around him now has street credentials.
We ain't got time to hang in the streets, man. We been did that.
What about your circle of people that was with you in Atlanta before everything started moving?
They still with me. YFN BC.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of us, we grew up together. Blood brothers to best friends, and we were like 8. So you know, that really it can get.
But ironically, while Lucci is breaking into the charts for the first time, still maintaining his ties to the streets, Young Thug's career is progressing at lightning speed. Let's not forget, as Lucci was just signing his very first deals, Young Thug was running around on yachts with Birdman, living the lifestyle, and slowly putting together a string of hits. While Lucci was making baby steps, Young Thug, who had had a head start of a couple of years, was making huge strides. In mid-2014, Young Thug signed to 300 Entertainment, and in 2015, in response to a large amount of his music leaking, Thug would end up dropping a colossal amount of music. His controversial Barter 6 project released, with the album's title Barter 6, sparking a furious feud with Lil Wayne, who had named a number of his albums The Carter, with this feud ultimately culminating in Lil Wayne's tour bus being shot up by an affiliate of Young Thug and Birdman, an incident that I covered in a separate video years ago on this channel. Go check that out if you haven't. But anyway, following the huge success of Barter 6, Thug would then go on to drop 2 installments of his Slime Season mixtape series to an overwhelmingly positive response. The first of which featured the classic Young Thug single Best Friend, which itself charted at 45 on Billboard, with these moves putting Young Thug in a prime position for an enormous 2016. And whilst YFN Lucci was getting his very first Billboard successes with his Wish Me Well 2 mixtape, Young Thug was going mainstream. He landed a Calvin Klein campaign. He dropped charting singles with Travis Scott and Usher. A third installment of his Slime Season mixtape, and probably most iconic of all, was his enormous album release Jeffrey, coming along with that famous cover art where Young Thug wore a dress. Now Jeffrey and its cross-dressing cover art stoked a lot of discussion in hip-hop about masculinity, gender, and self-image in a genre of music that's generally not known for its dress-wearing rappers. Now Thug would later go on to try and reclaim some gangster points, suggesting that the only reason he wore a dress is so that he could hide an AK-47 under it, but the reality is, a gangster throwing a dress on the cover of their album is always going to generate a lot of attention and sales. Jeffrey was a huge success, peaking at number 8 on Billboard, and frankly bringing the discourse in hip-hop forward about 10 years. After Jeffrey, Young Thug had cemented himself as a trap rap icon, and as a result, the streams and sales were rolling in. Young Thug was one of the hottest commodities in town, and everyone was lining up to throw a bag at him. So following the successful launch of Jeffrey, Young Thug would finally be in prime position to put into action his plan of making everybody around him a millionaire. At which point he worked closely with Lyle Cohen of 300 Entertainment to launch his own sub-record label, YSL. Now to this day, it's still not definitively clear what the S in YSL stands for. Is it Young Stoner Life, Young Slime Life, Young Slapped Life? It doesn't really matter, because Young Thug had finally and truly bossed up, escaping the blocks of Cleveland Avenue, making a whole bunch of hit records, and using his movement in the music industry to finally bring his vision for a label to life, and legitimately put on all of the friends and family who had been there with him, helping him survive from the early days in the trenches. This was an incredible achievement for Young Thug that likely inspired many more aspiring rappers to do the very same. And in the following year, YFN Lucci would try and level up too, making bigger inroads into the music industry and building himself an empire. However, unfortunately, as Lucci was growing in the music business, his past ties to the streets remained. And as he would continue to use his music to reflect on his dark past, sadly that same past would come back to haunt him. In 2017, YFN Lucci would honour his lost friend Big Nut by releasing his debut EP titled Long Live Nut. This release was a success, landing at number 27 on the Billboard charts, and spawning the hit single Every Day We Lit with PNB Rock, landing at number 33 on Billboard, the highest charting song of Lucci's career, and a track that is, in my opinion, a certified classic. But it wasn't all good news for YFN Lucci in 2017, however. Lucci was arrested in 2017 after refusing to pull over and fleeing from the cops, eventually being arrested at gunpoint, being caught with free weapons, but fortunately no drugs, despite the police claiming that they could smell marijuana, with Lucci himself being pictured balling in the back of a cop car with 2 chains on, looking clean and unbothered. Apparently following this incident, Lucci made bail, getting out, hopping straight on a private jet, and still managing to make a big show in another state. A close call for Lucci, but unfortunately he couldn't stay out of trouble. Again, in June 2017, he's arrested in Tennessee alongside Lil Wayne's daughter Reginae, who he was dating at the time. With these kinds of incidents combined with the music, Lucci was getting a whole bunch of attention, both good and bad. Meanwhile, in 2017, Young Thug had spent months crafting a country-inspired new mixtape. Originally titled Easy Breezy Beautiful Thugger Girls, or EBBTG for short, it was eventually released under the title Beautiful Thugger Girls on the 16th of June 2017. This date was coincidentally the birthday of Tupac Shakur. And naturally, a lot of different Tupac-related things were going on around the time of Tupac's birthday. This included the release of long-awaited Tupac biopic, All Eyes on Me, but there was also YFN Lucci, who had released a tribute song to Tupac called Like Pac on Tupac's birthday too. Now, this wouldn't have been a big deal had Young Thug not hopped on Twitter a couple of days later, revealing to the world that he had actually dropped his Beautiful Thugger Girls album on Tupac's birthday on purpose, because as he said in his tweet, he is the new Pac, and that Young Thug is the thug that Tupac didn't get to become, with Thug saying that he was going to finish what Tupac started. Now, this kind of comment naturally didn't rub hip-hop purists up the right way at all. But then again, let's not forget who's truly to blame for the Young Thug Tupac comparisons. Wyclef Jean, who was the first person to originally start calling Young Thug the new Tupac in 2016. But anyway, for YFN Lucci, this was the perfect opportunity to dig up their old bitter feud. And in response to Thug's tweets, Lucci piped up on Twitter himself, saying Tupac would have never worn a dress, clown emoji. Now, Thug responded to this with cryptic tweets, questioning whether Lucci was big mad or little mad, and calling him a peon and a buster. But then Thug's tweets took a little bit more of a dark turn, as he went on to say that Lucci should humble himself and thank God that he's in a position to take care of his mother. You know, the one who was shot in his home, with Thug going on to suggest that doing too much could lead to Lucci being put to sleep. Now, in spite of this very brief flare-up for all of Twitter to see, the real feud between these two remained beneath the surface for the remainder of 2017. That summer, Thug would go on to have the biggest debut of his entire career, his feature on chart-topping global hit Havana with Camila Cabello. Meanwhile, Lucci, still relatively new to becoming a Billboard charting successful rapper, is being profiled by rap media organizations like Complex, talking about how all of his dreams have finally come true through the music industry. Thing is though, in the streets of Atlanta, things were still pretty dangerous for both sides. One incident did make its way to the media, but has been pretty well hidden since it happened, was the January 12th shooting of YSL rapper Lil Duke outside of Atlanta's Magic City nightclub, when apparently following a confrontation inside the club, Duke was chased out of the club by a man with a gun, eventually being shot outside. According to a police report that later leaked, Duke was chased by 4 men, being shot in his shoulder and foot and left bleeding heavily. He was able to flee to a nearby Greyhound bus terminal, where he found safety and was eventually taken to hospital. Now, this incident was generally kept under wraps, but a surveillance clip from the incident leaked online around a year after it happened. But since then, that clip has been pretty well scrubbed from the internet. Now, after a lot of digging, I was actually able to find that clip, but I'm not going to risk putting that up on YouTube. I mean, this kind of incident just goes to show you, no matter how much success you or your team can achieve in the music industry, there's always going to be danger in the streets, as the shadow of past events continues to follow you into the present. But despite the dangers his team were facing in the streets, this didn't stop Young Thug continuing to provide opportunity for his team and his family. Summer 2018 actually saw Young Thug releasing his first YSL label compilation album called Slime Language. Meanwhile, YFN Lucci was also having a great 2018 focusing on music. His March 2018 album release, Ray Ray from Summerhill, ends up going 14 on Billboard, the highest performing project of his career. But as usual, there's no shortage of controversy surrounding Lucci either. In July 2018, he gets arrested once again, this time on video.
Y'all, Lucci is dead ass getting arrested right there. Holy f, this is motherfucking Lucci. Holy sh, y'all, fucking Lucci.
Now, towards the end of 2018, there was a brief glimmer of hope that maybe Young Thug and YFN Lucci might be on the road to making amends, when both Lucci and Thug appeared on separate tracks on the same project, Atlanta rap legend T.I.'s Dime Trap. Unfortunately, this didn't lead to any kind of reconciliation between these two sides, and T.I.'s album would ultimately be the closest we would ever get to seeing these two ATL giants squash the beef and jump on a track together. And moving forward into 2019, the unfortunate truth is, the beef would reignite, and YFN Lucci and Young Thug would once again go back and forth exchanging deadly threats, once again on Twitter. The beef between Thug and Lucci was reignited seemingly out of nowhere in March 2019, when Thug popped up on Twitter talking about people have slat in their mouths but ain't downed nothing. Now to me it's unclear whether he's dissing the ops who have the slat's name in their mouths talking smack about his movement, or if he's dissing wannabe slats who claim his movement but haven't put in any work. But a few days later Thug would post up once again, making it clear to the world exactly who he's having problems with. Thug would actually take to social media, threatening to slap both YFN Lucci and terrifying Houston rapper Sauce Walker.
Man, I'm gonna slap the hell out your little bomb man. My teeth got more than your little broke ass life, boy. Stop playing, I'm gonna slap the shit out your little as soon as I see you. Like I said, Buster. You do it look like advantage of me. Y'all ain't been doing nothing but dying.
Now, Young Thug's apparent disrespect to YFN Lucci's teeth is significant because a viral image had been going around showing just how nasty Lucci's gnashes were underneath his grills. Lucci clapped back, calling Young Thug a homophobic slur and a punching bag.
Hey man, y'all stop tagging it, man. Slap nobody. Yeah, man. All that punching bag been getting slapped down. All his little friends he want to make cool with him. He got niggas he want to go link with. He punch their ass. He got this nigga. Come on, man. That man a hoe, man. That nigga been running out the mall, boy. You a hoe. Yeah, punching bag. You don't never put Instagram drop that shit, do it. Yeah. Come on, hoe. Yeah. Cheap ass teeth in your mouth. Nigga. Cheap ass. And I'ma butt you down and get some more. Yeah, cheap ass earrings, cheap ass jewelry, man.
Sauce Walker also jumped in, reposting a clip of Young Thug beating the boxing pads like a little bitch. After that, Young Thug confirmed that he would be slapping Lucci on sight next time he sees him, as well as saying that his teeth cost more than Lucci's life.
Man, of course I'm gonna slap the fuck out Lucci and I'm gonna slap the fuck out Sauce. I'm gonna slap the hell out y'all little nigga, man. Stop playing with me. Niggas don't even play with me because they know what time it is. Like. So for y'all niggas to play with me, just really tell me, like, confirm that y'all don't know what time it is, you know, or y'all feel like I'm a hoe, or y'all feel like y'all play with me, or a nigga feel some type of way. Just be feeling a weird way about it, like a nigga may feel something like slam a bitch, or I don't care, bro. I want water. So, you know, you're gonna get that.
In response to this, Lucci would make a post showing off his immaculate diamond teeth, as well as atting Young Thug's fiancée Jerica, along with an extra disrespectful caption saying your husband ain't nothing. But thankfully, Lucci himself would eventually cool off, posting to IG that he got carried away with his earlier posts. But the social media war of words was far from over, because a month later, Young Thug would clown Lucci on social media, reposting a clip of a stripper calling out Lucci for being cheap.
Po bitch.
But soon, things in the streets of Atlanta would get much more serious than tweets flying back and forth, because a month after that, bullets would fly back and forth, and in May 2019, YFN Lucci's Mercedes G-Wagon would be sprayed up with bullets in Atlanta. Lucci was luckily not driving the car when it was targeted, but apparently a man was hit in the vehicle twice. But it was really in June 2019 when the disrespect in this beef would reach a disgusting new high, as it eventually emerged on social media that somebody had vandalized the gravesite of Lucci's fallen mentor Big Nut, spray painting the word slat over his headstone in green paint. An incredibly disrespectful act that no doubt had far more serious consequences than social media would ever know. Now, a month after that shameful incident, it would be time for more music. On August the 16th, 2019, Young Thug would finally drop his long-awaited album So Much Fun. And straight from its opening track, there are a couple of lyrics that some people thought may have had some secret hints to the ongoing feuds that Thug had been involved in. There's a lyric where Thug says that somebody on his team has had a chain stolen from them, but he's spinning to try and find it. In fact, when it comes to chain snatchings, it seems like there has been a long-running back and forth between these two groups, because there's another clip circulating on social media seemingly depicting a YSL member showing off a YFN chain that they had recently snatched.
Get the chain though, on the fuck nigga. Take it the chain though, on the fuck nigga.
Also in that intro track, Just How It Is, Young Thug also says that the last person that tried him almost got popped at Atlanta's Lenox Mall. Now, it was unclear initially what this could have been referring to, but in the days following the release of this song, a picture begins to circulate on social media. This is a picture that Young Thug had apparently posted up on his own Instagram, showing a blue Mercedes parked outside Lenox Mall with the trunk open and two people standing next to it. He captioned this picture, "Nice car." Well, this car is YFN Lucci's. And at the time, Thug also posted a clip to his story where he appeared to be telling Lucci not to blow the motor in his car and calling him a scary ass boy.
Don't blow the motor, little scary red boy.
So after all of this came to the surface, YFN Lucci took to Instagram to respond to Young Thug's lyrics on his album, labeling the lyrics as a lie, calling it a cap-ass album, then going on to suggest that Young Thug shitted on himself at Lenox Mall, with Young Thug then clapping back with the ominous and frankly incriminating post, saying, "At YFN, if I ain't like what you do for your mother and kids, I would have been killed you. Crying face, laughing face, crying face, laughing face." Now honestly, this is a slightly surprising post for somebody that likes to keep things pretty tight-lipped when it comes to street business on social media. But anywho, a little while after this, YFN Lucci was tapped in with the V103 radio station in Atlanta in an interview where he decided to stoke the flames of this beef even further. Speaking on Thug's fiancée once again, Lucci would boldly proclaim that he had been in the bed with her a couple of times.
Is it about a girl, yeah?
I don't know. He probably be, his girl. You know how she was about me. I was in the bed with her a couple times.
Wait, she said that's a lie though. She said that's a lie.
Now for the record, once again, Jerica has vehemently denied the claim on multiple platforms, saying that she has never hooked up with Lucci. She's also denied it in video. But none of that's really important because we all know that YFN Lucci is really just trying to say whatever he can to get under Young Thug's skin. And you could argue that he was successful, because only a day after that interview comes out, we see Thug being interviewed on Big Boy's show, where he's talking a whole lot of gangster shit. He says that when he kills someone, he hopes that they forgive him, like someone that kills people on the regular.
He already know my heart, so it's like, once you just, I'm too pure. So once you just, you do that, it's like, no. I forgive. I always forgive. If I kill a person, I pray to God that he forgive me.
However, when Thug is asked about YFN Lucci, he says that things aren't serious.
Sometimes I just like to have fun. It's no hard feelings. I hope he get richer than me. Take care of his family for life. I have no problem with nobody. I just like, we had problems before where we done disagreed on, but it's not a problem to where it's like, oh, I hope he die, or like, hell no.
Clearly things are a little serious, because Thug then goes on to say that he saw YFN Lucci at the blue carpet at the BET Awards, suggesting that he could have got it then.
Nigga, you don't mean no harm. I done seen you. Nigga, we just was on the blue carpet together in BET. You couldn't have meant no harm. Because you could have got it then.
But things weren't over, because after that, Thug got biblical, referencing his earlier post on social media saying that he would have killed Lucci if he wasn't doing good for his family, with Thug telling Big Boy that he really appreciates the good that Lucci does for his family, suggesting that he has videos of Lucci's kids on his phone, and saying this is why he hasn't done something bad to Lucci.
I put up a post the other day, I'm like, nigga, if I ain't like what you did for your mom and kids, like, I'm bigging them up, like, nigga, I like what you do for your mom and your kids. I got videos saved in my phone of goddamn him around in the car with his kids. The way he treated his mom and his kids will really stop me from doing something to him.
Now, saying that you've got clips of next man's kids on your phone is basically killing talk. But let's not forget that Lucci had posted a clip of Young Thug's daughter all the way back in 2016. At this point, all bets are off and things are getting very scary indeed. A day after that appearance, YFN Lucci then appears on Vlad TV, where he discusses the beef with Thug, but thankfully downplays the whole thing.
You and Young Thug went back and forth at one point.
Nah, I don't go back and forth with nobody.
I don't think Young Thug likes me either, so.
Thing is, despite both sides ultimately playing it down, real street situations would continue to follow Lucci throughout 2020. In June, there was a shooting on one of his music video sets, where apparently 21 shots were fired and a 15-year-old boy was grazed. Lucci would later explain to DJ Vlad that they were shooting a music video, shots were fired, and just everybody started shooting back.
We just heard probably 4 gunshots, you feel me? But then nobody know where they coming from, but everybody started shooting, they just started shooting back.
And apparently during the shootout, Lucci's own Rolls Royce was one of the casualties, with the car being shot numerous times by somebody on his team.
Somebody shot my fucking Rolls Royce who was with us, man. Nigga ass on the ground, shooting on the fucking ground. Yeah, that shit coming like 15,000 to get fit.
Now, a month after this, the battle for Lenox Mall is reignited, when YSL member Yak Gotti posts a picture of him standing on the back of YFN Lucci's 650 Maybach convertible parked outside Lenox Mall. In the picture, he is flipping off Lucci, but that's not all. Yak Gotti decided to take this disrespect to commercial levels, using the photograph of him disrespecting Lucci and his Benz as the front cover for his YSL record single, In a Coupe. Now, YFN Lucci responded to this, saying that Yak Gotti had dapped him up just moments before inside Lenox Mall.
The fuck you ain't say nothing in the mall? You want to shake your head and shit. You shook your head to stand on my car, bitch ass nigga. And I'm mad as hell. I just see these fuck niggas in the mall. These niggas ain't say shit, nigga dolo. I go outside, folk gotta tell me niggas standing on my car taking pictures.
Now, a month after this, for a moment it looked like YFN stood for Your First Nina, as YFN Lucci was caught on camera accidentally letting off a real rifle on the set of one of his music video shoots. Lucci later explained that he thought he'd been given a fake gun on the set of this video, but it turns out that it was real and fully loaded, with Lucci only finding that out when he, pulled the trigger. But it turns out that it was real and fully loaded.
I'm thinking they bringing me a fake gun, and I just hit it. I ain't think nothing was in it, but that shit just, it shot. And I said, oh, that's why you said don't cock it back.
Now naturally, in response to YFN Lucci's embarrassing accidental discharge, Young Thug immediately took to Twitter to mock YFN Lucci's weak stick game, simply posting, "Put that gun down, son." Now, this would actually be the last official and public back and forth between the YSL and YFN crews. Because unfortunately for the YFN crew, things would very soon come crashing down in a dramatic fashion, when a deadly shootout would leave a man dead and YFN Lucci behind bars, along with a bunch of his inner circle being charged with serious crimes. According to police reports and court documents, on the 10th of December 2020, YFN Lucci and 3 other men drove by car to a location in Atlanta. One of the people Lucci was with was named James Adams. He allegedly recorded himself whilst in the car with Lucci, telling the camera that they planned to fuck the city up. Now, the 2 other men that YFN Lucci was with were Rayvon Boyd, aka CP3, a rapper from Miami, and a man named Leroy Pitts. According to a warrant, Lucci drove his car full of hitters to the 900 block of Dimmock Street at around 5:15 p.m, pulling onto a shoulder when Adams and Boyd began to open fire from the car. Whoever they were shooting at shot back, with that man, James Adams, in Lucci's car being fatally struck in the head, dying, and subsequently being thrown from the vehicle, or as the police described it, manually ejected. They threw him out the car, with a harrowing 911 phone call being made by an innocent woman who was just passing by and found this dead body in the street.
What's the address of your emergency?
We need an ambulance. Somebody is laying out. Somebody, I don't know if he barely.
Let me connect you. Stay on the line.
Somebody just threw him out of the car.
Let me connect you to the ambulance.
Huh? He's still trying to fight for his life.
EMS, what's the address of the emergency?
Baby, can y'all please get an ambulance here? This man is dying. He's shot in the head. He just took his last breath, man.
What street are you on, ma'am? Can you give him your location, please, for the ambulance to give the guy some help?
What is his address? Man, this man just took his last breath, man.
Man, we have help on the way already. Tell me exactly what happened.
We don't know. Me and my sister, we were just walking down the street and somebody just rolled down the street with a man hanging out the car. They just pushed him out the truck and left him for dead.
Ma'am, I thought you said he was shot in the head.
Yes, he is shot in the head. They threw him out the car and he just died. He just took his last breath.
We have the ambulance already on the way, okay?
Okay.
And can you tell me what kind of vehicle?
Listen, you go ahead and get fire and PD and round.
Can you tell me what kind of vehicle he was stolen from, please?
White.
A white car, truck, or SUV?
SUV.
What direction did the SUV
Yes,
go?
his whole body was just hanging out the car.
Listen, just stay on the phone. Can you tell me if you saw any of the people that were driving the car, whether they adults or kids?
They were driving real fast, and we seen his.
All right.
Now, one of the men that they were shooting at eventually turned up at a local fire station with a gunshot wound, and just over a month after the incident itself, YFN Lucci was identified as the driver of that car. Now, weirdly, in between the shooting and his arrest, YFN Lucci appears on DJ Vlad for an interview once again. Now, it's unclear exactly when the interview was recorded, but the comments are frankly wild, with many people suggesting that Detective Vlad may have had something to do with building the case. Now, obviously that's just jokes, but there were some very interesting and illuminating moments in this interview. Lucci explained that at this point things were so dangerous for him in his city that he had to ride around in a bulletproof car.
Well, you actually have a bulletproof GMC?
Yeah.
Okay.
I paid $145 for it.
That's not bad.
Nah, hell no, not to save your life.
Lucci also commented on the feud with Thugger, saying that there was nothing to work out between them, and also saying that he never sees him in Atlanta.
But could it be worked out? Y'all do some music together?
We ain't nothing to work out. He in LA. Up in the air. Shit.
So you're saying he doesn't even stay in Atlanta anymore?
I don't never see him.
Now, Lucci would eventually turn himself into the police on the 15th of January 2021, with Young Thug reacting to the news, saying free all, because he doesn't want to see anyone in jail, op or not. And soon, Thug's wish would come true, as Lucci would appear in court after a few days in jail, eventually bailing out on $500,000 bond. Being seen on social media February 2021, celebrating his release after bonding out.
If we're home, I had to switch the jacket inside out, man. I didn't want to come out the same way I went in. I got this shit on my ankle. Bigger than a motherfucker.
Now, in my opinion, it's not unthinkable that Lucci could beat a case where he was the driver in a drill gone wrong where somebody in his car ended up getting killed. Problem is, the Atlanta police would have a trump card up their sleeve, because Lucci's mere involvement and proximity to this tragic mess placed him right in the middle of a tangled mess of interstate criminals. This allowed the Atlanta police to wrap him up, along with a bunch of his friends, in a massive racketeering case, which would be much harder to beat than those original charges for being in that car. And in May 2021, YFN Lucci probably had the most terrifying moment of his life, when the Fulton County grand jury issued a 75-page, 106-count indictment after a 6-month investigation, naming YFN Lucci among around a dozen other individuals in a massive racketeering conspiracy case targeting Atlanta blood gangs with ties to Bloods in different states.
New at 6, a massive gang indictment in Fulton County charged a dozen people with a racketeering conspiracy, including a famous musical artist, YFN Lucci.
Now, the indictment says that Lucci's an associate of the Bloods gang.
And in this instance, YFN Lucci's music wasn't going to do him any favors, because prosecutors had directly used his songs, videos, and lyrics as proof of his Blood membership.
Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis says her team used a YouTube music video entitled Shine On, quote, which includes lyrics promoting criminal gang activity in a massive RICO or racketeering indictment to shine a light on the alleged gang associations of 2 of the performers in the video, music megastar YFN Lucci, real name Rayshawn Bennett, and Justin Ushry, aka Bloody J, 2 of a dozen defendants in the case, which involves a variety of crimes. Investigators also used social media posts. We pulled several off Instagram that seemed to match descriptions in the indictment to help build their gang case.
And this was a serious indictment with a whole bunch of counts of racketeering related to crimes like aggravated assault, murder, unlawful gun possession, armed robbery, property damage, theft, and other gang-related charges. And along with Lucci, also charged in the indictment was Big Atlanta Blood, an early comrade of Young Thug and Lucci, Bloody J, whose YouTube uploads were used as direct proof that he was indeed a big old blood. With both YFN Lucci and Bloody J's appearance in the music video for Shine On being cited in the indictment, and the indictment itself went on to explain the complex web of interstate gang activity that had been going on between YFN and the Bloods in other states. The indictment said that YFN was an Atlanta Blood set affiliated with the original Inglewood family Bloods from Los Angeles, with ties to the Atlanta Blood gang. It goes on to connect them to a Miami-based crew of Bloods called the Bloodhounds that emerged from the 13th Avenue gang, explaining that in Atlanta, the Inglewood family Bloods from LA are represented by local crews like ABG and Bird Gang under a National Blood umbrella that also incorporated some of these Miami sets. And whilst this indictment didn't target Young Thug or the YSL crew specifically, it did mention them and attempt to explain how their structure works, with it being said that YSL were apparently aligned with the Rolling 60s Crips from LA, which is maybe why we saw that early collab between Bloody J, Young Thug, and Nipsey Hussle, who was actually on that track talking about how Rolling 60s gangbang in different states. So this massive indictment puts the YFN crew in direct rivalry with the YSL crew, even going as far as to specifically describe the YSL members as referring to themselves as slats, and suggesting that their ops refer to themselves as SK or Slat Killers. Numerous YFN members are named in the indictment as having been spotted on social media referring to themselves as Slat Killers, and unfortunately for Lucci, the feds would make a whole bunch of effort to tie his gang activity to his music career, alleging that YFN started around 2015 and was mainly centered around Lucci himself, describing YFN as a racket as part of the racketeering case, going on to say that the gang not only committed crimes to further the organization, but also accused them of using social media to advertise the strength and influence of the gang, with specific social media moments being cited, like a clip of YFN Lucci posing with a gun, along with a caption where he allegedly had said, "I'm ready to noodle me an N-word." The cops said that the YFN recording studio was actually a gang strong stronghold, which even ended up getting shot up in a drive-by. And apparently after it was shot up, Lucci was caught on a jailhouse phone recording, telling his homies, "We are gang and we need to move more dangerous like we're at war." The indictment went on to say that the 13th Avenue Hot Boys from Miami, who evolved into a blood set called the Bloodhounds, were connected with the YFN crew through music, with Lucci himself apparently being given access to dangerous and inaccessible parts of Miami when visiting there to film music videos, referring specifically to social media posts of Lucci in the Pork and Beans projects, a notoriously rough Miami hood where he pulled up to film music videos.
Motherfucking bean right now.
Yeah, I know what the fuck going on, man.
A whole lot of gang shit, a whole lot of fly shit. Don't talk on cameras to that shit. Ain't no hood, ain't no city where they say I can't go. And if that, I probably been that shit.
Now the cops actually state that simply being on social media tagged in the Pork and Beans projects is enough to prove Lucci's leadership role in an interstate criminal enterprise. Now that might be a little bit of a stretch, but regardless, the cops say that these music collabs eventually flourished into a full-blown alliance in the streets between these two criminal blood sets. Now this is how CP3, the rapper from Miami, ended up getting tangled up in that shooting where Lucci was driving and a man died, with CP3 being named in the indictment that also referenced his first day out rap music video. Frankly, Lucci's biggest mistake was being in that car when that shooting went down. Having been the driver of that car, Lucci is implicated in this indictment for murder, along with CP3 and Leroy Pitts, with the indictment saying that these three men caused the death of James Adams by participating in an assault and shooting at a number of other people who shot back. But here's the thing, beating that complicated charge on its own might not have been impossible, but it's what happened after that has made Lucci look so much worse. The indictment suggests that following this tragic incident, Lucci allegedly made things worse for himself by tampering with evidence, by hiding the vehicle used in the fatal incident, then making matters even worse. All three people that survived being in that car are also charged with hiring the firearms used in the crime, and the situation wasn't made any better by social media posts by Lucci and his crew either, with Lucci being quoted having posted to his IG a few months after the incident, saying whenever he gets drunk he thinks about murder. Separate to that, another damning allegation against Lucci's character in this indictment is a claim that on the 1st of August 2020, Lucci strangled and beat a man just for playing the Ox music, and then apparently Lucci paid off the guy to avoid being charged. Not a good look for Lucci, and beyond that, several other people around him face pretty damning allegations on their own too. A 22nd of September 29 incident where a YFN associate named Ty shot a man, a May 25th 2020 armed robbery where an AK-47 was used and shots were fired, an August the 27th 2020 aggravated assault, an October the 16th 2020 armed robbery and aggravated assault, felony murder on December 10th for that incident with the car, an 18th December charge for tampering with evidence, along with a whole bunch more incriminating social media documentation, such as the YFN affiliate Nard, who is apparently caught on social media saying he has so many bodies he feels like John Wick, as well as a number of YFN affiliates apparently being caught in a group chat repeatedly saying free somebody called No Love, which the indictment states is actually the person who is currently locked up for having shot Lil Duke from YSL at the Magic City nightclub. That's a lot of accusations. It's a lot to be accused of, and it's going to be a lot to fight. YFN Lucci's lawyer has outright denied the charges, saying Lucci is a successful recording artist and his First Amendment rights protect him in saying whatever he wants in his songs and social media.
Now, he's not a gang member. What he is an internationally recognized musical artist that is a triple platinum winner.
Lucci's lawyer, Drew Findling, added,
his First Amendment right to musically express himself is no different than the famous rock song, I Shot the Sheriff. It's not criminal activity.
I'm not sure whether that argument's going to be enough to convince the feds. And as of today, YFN Lucci is still waiting to face this enormous RICO case. And to make matters even worse, while he was locked up, YFN Lucci just caught another major loss for his music career, apparently being ordered to repay $1.7 million after losing a case alleging that he had stolen the biggest hit of his career, Every Day We Lit. And that, unfortunately, is where the YFN situation is still to this day. And no matter how you look at it or what you choose to believe, I think it's safe to say that right now, things couldn't possibly get worse for YFN Lucci. Look, the whole YFN crew could beat this case and Lucci could be home again soon, ready to kickstart his rap career once again. And if there's genuinely more to the story and Lucci is completely innocent, I really do hope that we see him back on the scene doing positive things. But if there's one big message that I've gotten personally from this particular story, it's that realistically, no matter who you are, no matter how far in your career you are, you should be very careful when it comes to posting your gang affiliations or criminal activities to social media. This story was pieced together with a lot of hidden details that were under the surface. Unlike some of the more modern feuds post where rappers make it easy for me, calling out dead ops by government name on every song. In my opinion, Young Thug is very smart in the way that he makes his art. His slime and slap branding and imagery do a lot to hint towards and conjure up a feeling and a vibe of gang culture and activities, without his songs being crammed wall to wall with overly incriminating lyrics or direct incitements to violence. Young Thug's music is still lit without having to put dozens of directly verifiable references to real crimes in his songs. And listen rappers, if you don't mention your dead ops by their real names on your songs, people like me aren't going to Google them. Now, YFN Lucci's music isn't particularly incriminating, but his social media activity might just be the thing that takes him down. Your songs aren't really a safe place to talk in detail about the real life dirt and crimes that you've done in the streets, and I tell you what, neither is your Instagram page or your YouTube channel. Because once this information is out there, you can't take it back. You can't get it taken down. It's forever. It's out there now, and it won't take long for it to be found. By the fans, by the feds, and by annoying internet detectives like me. So today's lesson is don't commit crimes, don't join gangs, and if you do, for the love of God, don't put it on Instagram. Hope you enjoyed today's story. Hope you found it interesting. I want to thank everybody who has been supporting the channel recently. Shout out all of the patrons for supporting. Hope you guys have been enjoying the uncut versions of the videos. If you didn't know, I actually just released an uncut version of my Jacksonville's Deadly Gang War video. Call it a video, man, it's basically a movie, man. 2 hours long, the uncut version's even longer. So if you're really riding with Trap Law Ross, head on over to Patreon, check out the uncut versions of the video, check out the uncut version of this one. If you want to watch all of my upcoming uploads in their beautiful uncut glory, become a patron. I'm gonna have more exclusives. I'm gonna have some lit stuff over there for you guys, basically, so it's crazy. But anyway, even if you're not a patron, glad that you're watching. I really appreciate your support. Make sure that you hit the like, hit the subscribe, leave me a comment, let me know what you thought of this vid, let me know what you want to see next, and until next time, gang, peace.